Your strategy is probably not the problem. That's the part no one wants to hear. Because right now, there are traders using the exact same strategy as you, making money consistently, while you're stuck, losing, second-guessing everything. So what's the difference? It's not the entries, not the indicators, not the setup. It's what happens after you enter the trade. And that's the part no one teaches. In this video, I'm going to show you the real reason your strategy isn't working. Not surface-level answers, not try a better system, but the deeper problem, the one that quietly destroys traders who actually have a working strategy. And if you really pay attention, you're going to notice something uncomfortable. You don't need a better strategy. You need to stop sabotaging the one you already have. Let's be honest. Most traders don't stick to one strategy long enough to even know if it works. They try something. It works for a few trades. Then it fails, and immediately doubt. Maybe this isn't it. Maybe I need something better. So they switch. New indicators, new system, new approach, and the cycle repeats. Over and over. It feels like progress, but it's not. It's just restarting. Now here's the part most people miss. The problem isn't that your strategy failed. The problem is that you changed your behavior the moment things got uncomfortable. Because every strategy has losing trades. Every single one. That's not a flaw. That's part of the system. But most traders don't experience their strategy over time. They experience it emotionally. And that changes everything. Because the moment emotions get involved, consistency disappears. And once consistency disappears, your results mean nothing. Let's break this down. Because there are a few reasons your strategy isn't working. And the first one is the most common. You don't actually follow your strategy. You think you do, but you don't. You follow it when it feels right, when the setup looks clean, when you're confident. But the moment things get uncomfortable, you change, you hesitate, you skip trades, you enter early, you exit too soon or too late, and you don't even notice it. Because in your mind, you're still using the strategy, but you're not. You're mixing structure with emotion, and that destroys everything. Because a good strategy with bad execution will always look like a bad strategy. Always. The results you're seeing are not from the strategy. They're from your behavior. Think about that. If you follow a strategy half the time and improvise the other half, what are you actually testing? Nothing. There's no consistency, no pattern, no edge, just random outcomes. And random outcomes create doubt, which leads to more inconsistency, which leads to more losses. That's the loop. And most traders are stuck in it without realizing it. But it doesn't stop there. Because even when traders try to follow their strategy, something else starts to interfere. Something subtle. Something that feels completely logical, but slowly destroys everything. You start changing your rules mid-trade. The trade goes against you. Not by much. And you think, maybe I just need to give it more room. So you move your stop loss. Just a little. Now you feel better. More in control. But you've just broken your entire system. Because that stop wasn't random. It was part of your strategy. It defined your risk, your structure, your edge. And the moment you move it, you're no longer trading the strategy. You're trading your emotions. Same thing on the other side. The trade is in profit. But instead of letting it play out, you close early because you don't want to lose it. Again, that's not the strategy. That's fear. And when fear starts making decisions, your results stop reflecting your system and start reflecting your emotions. So now you have a strategy, but you're not following it. You're adjusting it, interfering with it, reacting to it, and then wondering why it's not working. But here's where it gets even worse. Because most traders don't even give their strategy a fair chance. They judge it too early. They take a few trades, maybe 5, maybe 10, and if the results aren't perfect, they assume it doesn't work. So they switch again. But trading doesn't work like that. No strategy proves itself in 10 trades, or 20, or even 50, because trading is based on probability. And probability only shows up over time, not in small samples. So what happens? You take a few losses. You feel like it's not working. You abandon it. Then you repeat the same process with something else. Start, lose, doubt, switch, repeat. And the worst part? You never stay long enough to experience the winning side of the system. You quit right before it starts working. Over and over. So when you say your strategy isn't working, what you really mean is this. You're not following it consistently. You're changing it mid-trade, and you're judging it too early. That's the real problem. But this is only the surface. Because even if you fix all of that, there's something deeper happening, something psychological, something that affects every decision you make, without you even realizing it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's what we're getting into next. And this is where most traders get caught, without even realizing it. Because now it's not just about your strategy. It's about how your mind reacts to uncertainty. And this is the part no one prepares you for. You don't just trade the market. You trade your own emotions. Every single day. And if you don't understand that, you will keep sabotaging yourself, no matter how good your system is. Here's the next reason your strategy isn't working. You expect certainty in a game that only offers probability. This is one of the biggest disconnects in trading. You look at a setup. You analyze it. You convince yourself it's a good trade. And deep down, you expect it to work. Not 100%, but enough that when it doesn't, it bothers you more than it should. That's the problem. Because the moment you expect a trade to win, you become emotionally attached to the outcome. Now, when price moves against you, you don't just see it as part of the system. You see it as something going wrong, something that needs to be fixed. So what do? You interfere. You close early. You adjust your stop. You hesitate on the next trade because now your confidence is shaken. But profitable traders don't think like that. They don't expect any single trade to work. Not one. They expect uncertainty. They expect losses. They accept that every trade is just one outcome in a long series. And that one shift changes everything. Because when you stop expecting certainty, you stop reacting emotionally. And when you stop reacting emotionally, you finally start executing properly. But most traders never reach that point because they're still trying to feel right about their trades. And that leads to the next issue. You measure your strategy based on how it feels, not how it performs. This is subtle, but it's dangerous. You take a few losses in a row, and suddenly the strategy feels bad, unreliable, inconsistent, but nothing actually changed. The rules are the same. The setups are the same. The only thing that changed is your emotional state. And now that feeling starts influencing your decisions. You hesitate. You skip trades. You reduce risk randomly. Or worse, you overcompensate. You take trades you normally wouldn't, trying to make it back. And now your results get even worse. Not because the strategy failed, but because you stopped executing it properly. This is the trap. You think you're evaluating the system, but you're actually reacting to short-term outcomes. And short-term outcomes are meaningless in trading. Completely meaningless. Because even a strong strategy can lose 5, 6, 7 trades in a row. That's normal. But if you don't understand that, you'll interpret normal losses as failure. And once you do that, you start making adjustments that destroy the edge. That's why profitable traders separate feelings from performance. They don't ask, does this feel like it's working? They ask, am I following my rules? That's it. Because if the rules are solid and the execution is consistent, the results will come over time. Not instantly, not perfectly, but consistently. And that brings us to something even deeper. You don't trust your strategy. And that's the real issue. Because without trust, you can't execute. And without execution, nothing works. Think about it. If you truly trusted your system, would you hesitate before entering? Would you close trades early out of fear? Would you move your stop to avoid a loss? No, you'd follow it, exactly as it is. But most traders don't have that level of trust. Not because the strategy is bad, but because they've never seen it work over a large sample size. They've never tested it properly, never tracked it, never committed to it long enough. So every trade feels uncertain. Every decision feels risky. And that lack of trust shows up in your behavior, in small ways. But those small ways add up. You skip one trade. That trade wins. Now you feel frustrated. So you force the next one. That one loses. Now you feel worse. And just like that, you're no longer trading a system. You're reacting to outcomes. That's the cycle. And it keeps repeating until you break it. But here's the part most traders avoid. Building trust takes time. It takes data. It takes discipline. It takes sitting through periods where the strategy isn't performing and still executing it anyway. That's hard. That's uncomfortable. But that's the only way, because confidence in trading doesn't come from winning. It comes from evidence, from seeing your system play out over dozens, hundreds of trades. That's where real belief is built. Not in one good week, not in one big win, but in consistency over time. And once you have that, everything changes. You stop second-guessing. You stop interfering. You stop reacting emotionally to every move. Because now you know what to expect, not from the next trade, but from the system as a whole. And that clarity removes a huge amount of pressure. But there's still one more layer to this. Because even with trust, even with discipline, even with a solid system, there's one final mistake that quietly keeps traders stuck. And it has nothing to do with the strategy itself. It has to do with how you define success. And once you understand that, you'll finally see why most traders never become consistent. That's what we're breaking down next. And this is where everything comes together. Because this last mistake, it looks harmless. It feels normal, but it quietly destroys everything you're trying to build. You define success the wrong way. Most traders think success means winning trades. More green than red. More profits than losses. And on the surface, that makes sense. But in trading, that mindset is dangerous. Because the moment you define success as winning, you start chasing outcomes. And when you chase outcomes, you lose control of your process. Now, every trade matters too much. Every loss feels personal. Every win feels like relief. And that emotional pressure starts to affect your decisions. You hesitate when you should execute. You close trades early to lock in profit. You avoid valid setups because you don't want another loss. And just like that, your behavior changes. Not because the strategy changed, but because your definition of success did. This is the trap. You think you're trying to improve, but you're actually reacting to outcomes. And outcomes are the one thing you can't control. Profitable traders understand this at a deep level. They don't define success by the result of a trade. They define success by execution. Did I follow my rules? Did I manage my risk properly? Did I stick to my process? That's it. Because those are the only things you can control. And when you focus on what you can control, consistency starts to build. Quietly. Over time. But most traders never make that shift. They stay locked into short-term thinking. And that leads to another problem. They zoom in too much. They look at one trade, one day, 1 week, and they judge everything based on that. This strategy isn't working. I'm not good at this. I need to change something. But they're looking at the wrong time frame. Trading doesn't make sense in the short term. It only makes sense over a large number of trades. That's how probability works. 1 trade means nothing. 5 trades mean nothing. Even 20 trades can be misleading. But most traders don't think like that. They want immediate feedback, immediate validation, immediate results. And when they don't get it, they start interfering. They tweak the system. They change the rules. They abandon what they were doing and start over again and again and again. That's why they never see consistency. Because consistency only shows up over time, not in isolated moments. Profitable traders zoom out, way out. They think in terms of hundreds of trades, not one. They understand that losses are built into the system. Drawdowns are part of the process. And short-term results are just noise. That perspective changes everything. Because now there's no pressure on the next trade. No need to be right. No need to prove anything. Just execution, over and over again. And when you operate like that, you stop sabotaging yourself. But there's one more piece to this. And this is the part most people avoid. Because it's uncomfortable. It forces you to look inward. Your results are not coming from your strategy. They're coming from your behavior. That's the truth. You can have the best system in the world. But if your behavior is inconsistent, your results will be inconsistent. You can have a simple system. But if your execution is disciplined, your results can be stable. That's the difference. Not complexity. Not intelligence. Behavior. How you act under pressure, how you respond to losses, how you handle uncertainty. That's what determines everything. And this is where most traders get stuck. They keep looking outward for a better strategy, a better indicator, a better entry, something new. something different. But the real problem isn't out there. It's internal. It's how you react, how you decide, how you execute. And until you fix that, nothing changes. You'll keep repeating the same cycle. New strategy, short-term results, doubt, adjustment, failure, repeat. But the moment you shift your focus, everything starts to change. You stop asking, what strategy works? And you start asking, can I follow a strategy consistently? That's a completely different question, and it leads to a completely different outcome. Because now the focus is on execution, discipline, control, and those are the things that actually create consistency. So if you take one thing from this entire video, let it be this. Your strategy is probably not broken. Your execution is. And the gap between where you are and where you want to be is not knowledge. It's behavior. That's it. That's the difference. And now the real question is this. If you stopped changing strategies, stopped interfering with trades, stopped reacting to every outcome, and just focused on executing one system properly, what would your results actually look like? Because that answer is what you've been avoiding. And it's also where your progress begins.